All protein shakes are healthy, right? Nope. How about plant-based foods from the grocery store? Still nah. How about zero-calorie sodas? Are they healthy? Keep trying. Well, I got a pre-made smoothie from this restaurant. You can't tell me that's unhealthy. Not unless you watch them blend the ingredients in front of you. The truth is that food companies see your health as a money piñata, and they'll keep whacking it until you stop giving your hard-earned candy. Welcome to Beyond the Veil of Health, and this is how food companies trade your health for profits. Food conglomerates see what trends people are following, and they find a way to create a version of their previously popular product that matches the current trend. Take Coca-Cola for example. In the past, they had diet soda. Now, that diet soda has turned into Coke Zero. They saw that people started fearing calories, so they created the same Coke, just without the calories. But don't worry, it's just as bad for you as the previous stuff. How? Well, it's simple really. Coke Zero is sweetened using aspartame and acesulfame potassium, and that first one is the real culprit. You see, aspartame can smash that like button, just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, aspartame can cause insulin resistance, damage the gut biome, and there are several studies linking diet soda to weight gain, not weight loss. Oh, and that zero-calorie oil spray you keep using? It's not 0 calories. They just use an insanely low serving size. That's because if the serving size has less than 5 calories, they're legally allowed to say it has 0 calories. Same goes for zero-calorie seasoning. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's fire up the Wayback Machine and go to the year 1976. Senator George McGovern noticed 2 things happening with senators. A lot of them were eating well, and a lot of them were also falling victim to heart attacks. During the 60s and 70s, as many as 8 senators passed away due to heart attacks, and people started putting 2 and 2 together. For the first time, someone thought our diets were to blame for our diseases. At the same time, studies pointing to how dangerous smoking had become were just starting to surface. So, if the smoke we inhale could harm us, why not the food we ingest? Some thought that all the heart attacks were somehow linked to our diet, and they got it right. Kinda. You see, they said that the main cause of heart disease was LDL cholesterol, and they had a little bit of data to back it up. So there you have it. Fat causes heart attacks. Therefore, foods that contain fat like eggs, meat, and dairy were therefore harmful. All the American public had to do was take the fat out of their diet, and they reduced the risk of heart attacks. And even that's kinda right, but they got one major thing wrong. While they were shaking their finger at fat for being bad, they were pointing the other finger at carbohydrates for being good. And why shouldn't they say that? A bunch of Swedish nutritionists came up with the first food pyramid in 1974, and they placed grains at the bottom. So, carbs are the way, fat's the enemy. Let's announce a war on fat. And that's just what they did. Everyone was looking for fat-free products, so supermarkets were stocking their shelves with fat-free products that were ultra-high processed junk. But hey, it was fat-free, ultra-high processed junk, so it must be good. Let's buy more of it. Well, that's what caused an even bigger epidemic. You see, just because you say fat is bad and people stop buying the products, it doesn't mean giant food corporations will stop selling their products. They found a better solution. To replace the fat in the foods, they started adding more carbs, sugar, salts, and artificial flavors that made the food taste just as good as the real deal. And all of a sudden, you don't care that the bag of chips is fat-free. It tastes just as good as the ones with fat. But therein lies the problem. Even though everyone was saying that fat was the culprit, people were still gaining weight. And while the rate of heart disease deaths went down over the decade, a new, more dangerous epidemic was taking place. In 1992, the United States Department of Agriculture published its official food pyramid. Have they learned anything from their war on fat? This is the pyramid. So, you tell me. According to the USDA, you need between 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta every week. Meanwhile, your main sources of protein like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, nuts, and dry beans were supposed to be eaten only 2 to 3 times a week. And at the top, there's a little label right below the fats which says sugars added. And on the opposite side is the warning, use sparingly. And this gave birth to another popular food label, no added sugars. Okay, so the government tells people to eat less added sugars, fats, and oils. The food corporations caught up to this craze as well, so it's common to see the label no added sugars on anything. A bag of salty potato chips said no added sugar. Things that aren't supposed to have sugar said no added sugar. As the years went by, the fear of sugar morphed, and pretty soon it became sugar-free, the ultimate form, just like fat-free. Little did everyone know that the pyramid was a walking contradiction. On one end, it said don't eat fat and sugars, but on the other, it promoted carbs, which is basically a different form of a simple sugar. So white bread was okay, but sweets containing sugar, fat, and flour weren't? It wasn't long after that for people to start hating on carbs as a group. And not just sugar, but carbs were slowly getting added to the list of dangerous foods people should avoid. Buzzwords like low carb and no carb started floating around. The Atkins diet was one of the most popular low-carb diets that's still relevant today. Carbs and simple sugars were being earmarked and classified among some of the most dangerous foods you could consume. People didn't want to have anything that contained carbs. They were looking at the nutritional values and avoiding anything with high carb content. But still, people didn't want to sacrifice taste for health. The ultra-processed foods were still being sold at the supermarket, but with a different name and a new identity. The shelves were filled with low-carb tortillas, low-carb bread, and even low-carb protein bars started becoming a thing, and the almighty diet soda. It was like people didn't care what was in the food they ate as long as it had low fat and low carbs. Well, what happens if you take 2 out of the 3 basic macronutrients from food? You're left with protein and a lot of artificial sweeteners, flavors, additives, and a mountain of other things that are only bad for your health. How do you suppose they make low-carb tortillas or bread? They have to use some sort of modified wheat starch, vital wheat gluten, or worse yet, hydrogenated vegetable oils. And these foods wreak havoc on our bodies. At the peak of the low-carb hype, nutritionists began promoting the idea that gluten is bad for people and that we should avoid it. While some people who are allergic to gluten might find it difficult to consume, everyone started avoiding the protein found in wheat. Gluten is what adds texture and flavor to your bread. But people didn't care. Gluten was a bad word, and people avoided it like the plague. So, if fats, sugar, and carbs aren't good for you, that leaves us with veggies. Good, because that brings us right into the plant-based BS. Next time you're in a supermarket and find some plant-based sausages, or bacon, or burger patties, or whatever it may be, turn the package over and read the list of ingredients. Chances are they're going to have around 20 ingredients, 15 of which you can't pronounce. And that's the problem with all these different labels. They're just a cover-up, a ruse, a story the food industry tells us to sell their cheap, ultra-processed food and turn a profit. It's the same whether it's plant-based, sugar-free, fat-free, gluten-free, or any other food that's free of something else. And just because the food is plant-based, that doesn't mean it's good for you. Why would you like sausages made from plants anyways? Either you like carrots or you don't. Carrots shouldn't taste like ground beef. And if they do, some human did something to modify them, and that can't possibly be good for us. Labels are simply tricks food companies use to use a diet trend against us. They convince us that their ultra-processed junk is healthy, just because it doesn't have sugar or fat or because it's plant-based. The healthiest things are found in nature, not at the bottom of a plastic bag sealed with glue. So, next time you're at the grocery store, pay very little attention to the shiny labels, the big letters, and the front cover. Turn the product over and read the nutritional values and ingredients. If you can't pronounce half the stuff that's on there, chances are the product isn't good for your health, and you should be looking for a replacement. This is Beyond the Veil of Health, delivering truth in an industry where lies are the norm.